And go to next chapter, manufacturing process. With the exception of very small volume of a few methods produced by electrolytic or pure chemical method, all material used in metal manufacturing starts out at casting. The noise created by grain structure and the rough surface condition on many castings make inspection by which of the following additive method difficult. Ultrasonic testing, because of grain structure, UT, you have to go for low frequency. Patterns can be number of different style but are always shape of finished part and roughly the same size as the finished part with slightly oversized dimension. What is the reason for leaving a finished part with slightly oversized dimension? To allow for shrinkage. The freezing or solidification of a liquid form, the outside of casting towards the center is referred to as progressive solidification. The freezing or solidification of liquid from one part of casting to another, such as from the end to the other, is referred to as directional solidification. Hot spots are area of casting that have the highest temperature immediately after pouring. These areas normally take longer to solidify. Sources of feed metal. Drops of splash metal, that is lose heat and freeze and then become untrapped in globules that do not completely join with the molten metal, create a discontinuity called cold shut, SHUT, not SHUT. So what is the SHUT? That is coming next. Metal is poured into a mold. It may freeze off and then in a thin section, and then it may met by molten metal from another direction. The discontinuity that is formed at the location is referred to as a cold shut. The contact surface not melt. It cannot melt. As the casting freezes or solidifies, thicker section may require additional metal to draw from during the cooling process. This attachment is called risers. Some more metal is there in risers, so it will help in shrinkage to giving metal while shrinkage. Devices made of steel, cast iron, or copper that are inserted strategically into a mold cavity to promote directional solidification are called chills. The three stages of shrinkage or contraction are liquid contraction, solidification contraction, and solid contraction. That is shrinkage. The type of shrinkage is compensated for by the pattern maker's knowledge of each specific material's dimension or dimensional loss from cooling to room temperature from liquid state. Solid state contraction or shrinkage, solid state shrinkage. Because it is writing, this type of shrinkage is compensated for by pattern maker's knowledge of each specific material dimensional loss from cooling to room temperature from a liquid state. Cast iron is often cast iron is often melted in a furnace that is similar to a blast furnace, which produces a continuous Supply required by large production foundries. This type of melted equipment is referred to as cupola furnace. Crucible furnaces are often lift-out crucibles used primarily for non-ferrous materials for small volume work. Crucible furnaces are less than 45.4 kg of material. A furnace with electrical coils built into the walls to create high-frequency alternating magnetic fields, which causes internal eddy currents and then uses heat dissipated from eddy currents to melt the material, is called induction furnace. The most commonly used mold material for the casting process is the sand. When making a basic sand mold, there is often a need for internal cavities, holes, or surface configurations that cannot be a part of main pattern. These details are often inserted into the mold using cores. The green cell mold contains which of the following ingredients: sand, clay, and moisture. To facilitate removing pattern from mold, patterns must be designated. To facilitate removing the pattern from the mold, patterns must be designed with suitable draft angles. Jolting and squeezing, manual ramming, and sand slinging are all different methods of compacting of a mold. The ability of a finished sand core to withstand its own weight without sagging in the mold and be strong enough so that its own buoyancy, as liquid rises around it, it will not cause it to break or shift, is called dry strength. Cores are designed to collapse after the molten material solidifies. Small metal support with broad surface ends that are designed to support the separate cores from the mold cavity is called chaplets. It only supports the core. Most of the benefit of a dry sand mold can be obtained by subjecting the internal surface of mold to heat from torches, radiant lamps, hot dry air, or electric heating elements in a technique called skin drying. Occasionally, molds are made of castings that weigh several hundred metric tons. Because of these molds cannot be moved about and contains high hydraulic head pressure, they are often constructed in floor or pit molds. What type of material are cast from plaster of Paris molds with additives such as talc, asbestos, silica floor, and other materials to vary the mold properties? Non-ferrous. Non-ferrous, we can use plaster of Paris. Variations of this type of casting include making a new pattern for every mold using wax, frozen mercury, or low melting point thermoplastic. Investment casting. Permanent mold casting is different from die casting because die casting is done by applying pressure to a liquid metal. Hot chamber and cold chamber are both of which type of casting method? Die casting. At one time, the principal product produced by the casting method was this casting method was shear pipe, centrifugal casting. As a casting cools, the material begins to crystallize, first forming the equiaxed crystal at the surface, followed by columnar growth as solidification process. The third phase of the growth procedure is coarse equiaxed crystal until completion of solidification. During columnar crystalline growth, the temperature gradient is small and growth may occur on the sides of column. This produces a particular type of structure known as dendritic growth. Alloys that are freeze or solidify at a single temperature that is lower than the individual components of the alloy are considered eutectic alloys. If it is not a single, then it is non-eutectic. So different things, different alloys combined together or some impurities. So that's why non-eutectic. For good castings, the metal should be at the correct superheat when it is poured into the mold. The difference between porosity and gas holes in a casting is size and number. Hot tears typically occur at the change in section of thickness in the casting. So while it changes, it cannot be sharp corner. If it is a sharp corner, it will give hot tears. Discontinuities that occur where additional molten metal cannot be fed quickly enough to offset contraction during the solidification are called shrinkage cavities.